안녕하세요, 여러분. So last week we talked a little bit about pronunciation of consonants in Korean. We didn't really get to cover 받침. For those of you who don't know, 받침 is basically the last consonant of a syllable. You can have two consonants in the end of a syllable, you can have one. The Korean from Zero, book number 1, has a really good picture. Yeah, so this picture right here can show you how to form syllables with one or two consonants at the bottom. Alright, so as I mentioned, you can have either single 받침 or double 받침, so either one or two consonants at the bottom of a syllable. Generally, in the 받침, whenever you have vowels like giuk, biuk, diut, jiut, shiut, all these vowels, usually they have a much more silent and not emphasized sound. In a word like family in Korean, 가족, 가족. Some of you may feel like I'm not even pronouncing the last giuk at all, which I kind of am, because I'm not saying 가족, I'm saying 가족. And if later on I want to form a sentence with it, I will obviously say things like 가족이 or 가족을, things like this. When I want to extend the word, obviously I will enunciate the giuk, but when it's at the end, it kind of forms a pause-like sound. This obviously happens when you're just saying a word on its own, but in most of the times in Korean you would be speaking in sentences, so words would be kind of coming one out of another, so don't worry about that. What you should know is that this really interesting letter in the form of a circle in Korean that you use normally with vowels, at the bottom of a syllable, it has a ng sound, like an ng. Yong, kang, tang, bong, song. So generally, single 받침 are not that complicated if we look at just certain syllables separately. When it comes to double consonants in the 받침, there are actually only two that ever appear in a 받침, and that is double giuk and double shiut. That is it. Double biuk, double jiut, and double diut do not appear in the 받침 ever in modern day Korean. So that's kind of nice. Less for us to remember. Examples of these can be the word 볶음, which means fried. This is where we can see one of the rules of basically Korean pronunciation applied right there. And that rule is called the Carryover Rule, where the end sound of the first syllable is being carried on and kind of merged together with the beginning sound of the second syllable, creating a fluid word. Because obviously you're not going to say 볶음, because that's gonna sound weird. So instead, we say 볶음. So technically, the word is this, but the pronunciation is this. Same with words like 있어요, 있어요, but we don't say 있어요, we say 있어요, because we want the language to sound more fluid. With 시읒, double 시읒, 지읒, and the 지읒 with a little tick on top, I don't know how it's called. These guys, they can get a little bit complicated when they're in the 받침, especially when we're carrying the sound over to the next syllable. So whenever you have a shiat at the bottom or double shiat, they're going to have a d sound when they're on their own, but whenever they're in a word or in a sentence, they're gonna carry over their s sound to the next syllable. For example, 있다 doesn't carry over any sound because, well, there's the d sound right next to it, so it's kind of hard to. 있다 kind of sounds weird. So we just leave the it, but whenever we have it어요, it's a vowel, we just carry it over and we say 있어요. Same thing happens with non-double consonants or other consonants like the word 암을. We have and 을, and we don't say 암을, we say 암을. So it technically turns into 암을 in terms of pronunciation. Same with 밥이, not 밥이, 밥이, 찾아, not 찾. Exceptions, obviously. Where do we go without exceptions? They are diet and the t version of it, followed by an e sound. For example, words like 갓이 turns into 같이, not 같이. That's pretty much the only kind of logical exception. There is an irregular exception, which is just so strange to me. I don't know. And this exception is that whenever you have a shiat at the bottom of a syllable followed by an e sound, the shiat turns into an n sound. For example, in words like 나뭇잎, 나뭇잎. This is the first time I'm encountering this word, and when I first saw it, I thought it was going to be 나무십, but it isn't. It's 나뭇잎. I don't know why it's like that. I read that it's an irregular exception. If any of you native speakers, tutors know why this exception is the way it is, please leave a comment in the comment section. It's gonna help all of us. There's another rule, sort of, where when you have one syllable that ends on a consonant and another syllable that starts with the same consonant, basically that turns it into a double consonant. For example, 먹기 turns into 먹기. 입판 turns into 입반. Or 맞좁다 turns into 맞좁다. And a little exception, kind of not really an exception, with 딜. 딜 doesn't have a double consonant, like we don't have a double 딜 ever, but it does kind of happen when we have a certain syllable ending on a 딜 and another one starting with a 딜. For example, with my favorite phrase ever since I made a first learning Korean video, and that phrase is 죽을래? Yes, the "do you want to die" phrase is an example of this exception slash rule slash I don't even know, where you have kind of a prolonged L sound. 죽을래? 갈래? 마실래? This is where the beauty of Korean comes in, and you can actually have two separate consonants that are not the same in the 받침. And I'd say they're kind of separated into two groups, depending whether you read the first or the second consonant of it. And sometimes you read both. I know, right? Sounds a little complicated. And some of them you will rarely, like I'm telling you, so rarely ever see, that you don't really need to worry about them. Some of them are more prominent and are kind of used in daily life. The first group, you can think of it as when these syllables are on their own, you will only read the first syllable. And with the second group, you will only read the second syllable, but that's only when they're on their own, or they're followed by a syllable with a consonant at the beginning. In the word 닭, which is chicken, you can see that they fit into the category where you only pronounce the K, the 기역, 닭. You don't say 닭. 닭살, goosebumps. It works because the next syllable starts with a 시읒. But, for example, in a word like 일곱, it doesn't really work because you read both syllables at the bottom, because this is where the carryover rule applies as well. In terms of pronunciation, you keep the first consonant in the first syllable and then you carry over the second consonant to the other syllable. I got really excited over this, sorry. This is something you have to keep in mind. Whenever you have double consonants, you can separate them into these two groups, but be aware that sometimes you might need to read both of the consonants in the 받침 because you might have a following syllable that starts with a vowel, so you will have to carry over one of the consonants. Hope that made sense. I hope this wasn't too much information for you to take in one go. I will try to make sense of it in the description box. I've actually been exploring kind of different platforms to maybe blogify my weekly Korean videos, where I will be able to give you images and lots more explanations and examples in a blog-like form. I'm still looking for a way to do it. Hopefully in May I will be able to release a blogified version of, I don't even know if that's a word, of our weekly Korean series, and hopefully it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand. For now, practice your Korean, practice your pronunciation, enjoy it, and have a great upcoming weekend. Good luck to y'all, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye! 안녕!